going on, everybody? Happy New Year. Coach William Grazione here from Metabolic Evolution Incorporated. And in today's video, guys, we are going to talk all about the topic of you created your own food sensitivities to dairy and gluten specifically. So when you contact Metabolic Evolution, we are sending you a very detailed client questionnaire in which we are expecting you to complete that, send us the information back, and then we are essentially analyzing that questionnaire to take a look at all of your information. And what we're seeing is this. A lot of people that are saying they have dairy and gluten intolerances. Now, I'd like to make one thing very clear. Most of the people that say they have a gluten sensitivity, in my opinion, have actually created their own. Now, this is why, because only 1% of the population actually have celiac disease. So if you have not been clinically diagnosed with celiac, chances are you may have created your own sensitivity to gluten. I believe our diet culture is to blame. So why would I blame our entire diet culture on, hundreds of thousands of people walking around claiming that they are, sensitive to gluten? It's because of this. Every single diet that you see within our diet culture stems around restriction, or everything that at least you see in the mainstream. Everything is about restriction, right? So restriction in our diet culture tells us you have to eat less and you have to do more. Now, in theory, that does hold true, but only for so long, all right? So this is what I want you to consider, is restriction. What do you typically cut out of a diet when you want to lose fat? What do you hear about when you go to the grocery store? What do you hear about when you meet up with your girlfriends on Friday night? Oh, I'm cutting out all of my dairy. I'm cutting out all of my bread. I'm eliminating all of the carbs out of my diet. This is why these two are the most popular things we hear about, dairy and gluten. It's because society would tell us that gluten, sugar, and dairy are the devil, all right? So let's go ahead and talk about another thing, is that competition preparation. So what we also see a lot of is that people are coming to us and they've worked with a previous coach in the past, and that coach, for whatever reason, essentially tells them that, hey, if you're going to be eating dairy or you're going to be having gluten, you will not lose body fat. We have to eliminate those things out of your diet for the entire duration of the prep. Now, keep in mind that that prep can be anywhere from, 12 to 20 plus weeks in most cases. So then obviously you're creating an environment where those enzymes are no longer there. Let's go ahead and talk about the food elimination diets. Now I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I cannot make this up. I honestly heard this the other day, and I wanted to share it with you because I think it's probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard when it comes to nutrition. A client of mine, she has some friends, and they hired somebody who essentially has them on a zero-fat diet. Now within this zero-fat diet, these people are actually expected to put gloves on, put gloves on their hands before they touch their proteins to prep them and cook them. Because the trainer or the coach, whoever they hired, actually told them that the fats from the meat would absorb into your hands and make you fat, or wouldn't allow you to lose fat. Now, I cannot make this up. Again, this is restriction, this is elimination, this is like extremes. But all of these things happen within our diet culture. And our diet culture, guys, you're talking 20, 30 years of just crap information. So let me go ahead and lay something down on you guys really quick and just tell you a little bit about how these two things actually come into play here. So we have this beautiful immune system, okay? We have this beautiful gut microbiome that we've been building ever since we were children. And we have a ton of digestive enzymes, okay? Now our digestive enzymes are responsible for breaking down all of the various types of foods that we eat, whether it be things like dairy, whether it be things like glutens, it's vegetables, it's proteins, fats, whatever the digestive enzyme is, here is your consideration. When it comes to dairy, we're talking about the digestive enzyme lactase, okay? When it comes to gluten, we're talking about the digestive enzyme dipeptidyl peptidase, or DPPIV for short, okay? Now, why are these two things important? And it's because when you go on one of these restrictive diets, whichever one it is, and you eliminate these things out of your diet, what do you think happens to the digestive enzymes responsible for breaking that food down? Lactose and dipeptidyl peptidase. They go dormant because you're no longer using them. you haven't had dairy or gluten in 4, 5, 6 months to a year. I talked to somebody on the phone not too long ago, and they actually told me that they pretty much cut dairy out of their diet for 2 years, and they were expecting to be able to re-implement it. And I'm like, the digestive enzyme responsible for you breaking that protein shake or that dairy product or whatever down, it's no longer there. We actually have to try to bring that back now. So this is the biggest issue, is that because of our elimination, we have essentially put these digestive enzymes into hibernation. So with all elimination, it's going to lead us to something happening. Now, what typically happens with elimination diets or very restrictive diets is that once we go to try to re-implement these things, because typically you can only stay away from them for so long, do you think you have an action plan to go ahead and slowly re-implement dairy and gluten? In most cases, people do not. So this is where you see a lot of this. After a competition, people will go out and they will just go ham. And they'll eat tons of dairy products or tons of gluten. There's no slow re-implementation, okay? And I think that this is oftentimes why people start to believe that they are dairy and gluten sensitive, is because they put this huge bolus amount back into their body when the digestive enzymes are already suppressed. So therefore, what do? You immediately stop because you're like, oh my God, I feel terrible. I'm gonna cut this out again. And then you're back on the same track that you were that gave you this problem. So let's go ahead and talk about possible fix. Now, I've worked with a lot of clients who have this issue, and something that I've tried and I've actually seen success with. Now, I don't want to say it's 100% like pass-fail rate, but I would say it's probably 50 to 75% that can actually be very beneficial. And the first thing is going to be a very slow kind of re-implementation of these things over time. So we'll call this time, we'll call this serving size. So maybe what we want to say is we implement half a piece of bread, okay, for a week. Or we implement half a serving of dairy, okay. Now keep in mind that over the first probably week to 2 weeks, you're probably not going to feel all that great because the enzymes for breaking it down aren't there, right? So you may have some diarrhea, you may have some issues such as that, but I would actually challenge you to try to stick this out for maybe a week or 2 weeks. Now what I think would happen would be that the enzymes responsible for breaking these two things down would actually start to naturally come back, okay? Now over the course of time, you could get yourself kind of onward to having maybe a serving of each, but doing it very slowly over time. So having maybe a half a serving and then going to 3/4 of a serving and then maybe going to 1 serving over time could bring those enzymes back. Now another thing that I would recommend would be to supplement a digestive enzyme that contains lactase and dipeptidyl peptidase, because that's essentially going to help you out with dairy and gluten. So hopefully you guys found this video extremely helpful. Hopefully it shed some light on these two things that everybody seems to have a sensitivity to. Thanks so much for checking out this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, if you found this video extremely helpful, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. I would love to engage with all of you there. Happy New Year, God bless you, and I'll talk to you in the next one.